Thank you all very much, you rowdy Oregonians. All right. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Governor Kitzhaber, for your powerful leadership and for your warm introduction and for all you do for the people of Oregon and of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, give another hand to your first-class, world-class governor, Governor Kitzhaber. Thank you so much. Meredith, I also want to thank you for your leadership, you and all of your team. Thank you for the warm invitation to come tonight and to enjoy, among other things, the microbrews. Thanks to all of the distinguished officials who were here tonight for your service, but especially to the Oregon delegation in the Congress. Senator Merkley, Senator Wyden, Congresswoman Bonamici, and Congressman Blumenauer, DeFazio, and Schrader. I honor all those who serve the public, but I have to acknowledge the extraordinary challenge of being in service in Washington today. Thanks for your perseverance. And thank you, Oregon Democrats, for having me tonight and for keeping the faith. It's my great honor to be with you this evening. Tonight I want to build on a couple of the points that the governor so beautifully made, really, and talk about the American dream. Because more than any one candidate, more than any one contest or policy, that's what's at stake right now. Right now. Our youngest daughter, Catherine, is a senior in college, doing well. She graduates next month. And I remember clearly sitting at her high school graduation a few years ago and reflecting on the difference between her path to that milestone and my own nearly 30 years before. As Governor said, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, generally not thought of as a garden spot, most of that time on welfare. I lived there with my mother and my sister and my grandparents and various other relatives who came and went in a 2-bedroom tenement. My mother, sister, and I shared one of those bedrooms in a set of bunk beds. So you go from the top bunk to the bottom bunk to the floor every third night on the floor. I went to big, broken, overcrowded, sometimes violent public schools. I can't remember a time when I didn't love to read, but I don't remember ever owning my own book until 1970, when I got my break through a scholarship to Milton Academy outside of Boston, a boarding school. For me, that was like landing on a different planet. Now, our daughter Catherine's early experiences were very different, to say the least. She's always had her own room for most of her life in a big house in a leafy neighborhood outside of Boston. By the time she got to high school, she had already traveled on 4 continents. She knew how to use and pronounce a concierge. And she had shaken hands in the White House with the President of the United States. When Catherine was in kindergarten, her class was studying the changes in the seasons, summer, winter, fall, and spring. Her homework assignment was to describe the 4 seasons to Mom and Dad. And so when the time came, she described in minute and accurate detail her several visits to the 4 Seasons Hotel in Washington, D.C. She said, first you drive up and the doorman takes your car. 5 years old. 1 generation. You understand? 1 generation. And the circumstances of my life, my family's life, were completely transformed. Now that story doesn't get told as often as we'd like in this country, but it gets told more often in this country than any other place on earth. That is an American story. To be able to imagine a better life for yourselves and your families, and then to work for it, that is the American dream. The American dream is more than the stuff of legend or folklore or political rhetoric. It's who we are. Ours is the only nation in human history not organized around a common language or culture or religion. Our country is organized around certain civic values, values we have defined over time and through struggle as equality, opportunity, and fair play. For these values, at the end of the day, we are the envy of the world. They make the American dream possible. Well, my friends, for far too many today, the American dream is up for grabs. Thanks to the global economic collapse, thousands and thousands of people have lost their jobs, their savings, their homes. Many, maybe some of you, have lost their confidence in our ability to restore the American dream. In Massachusetts, maybe even here in Oregon, some folks harbored doubts about the American dream even before the Great Recession. 5.5 years ago now, when I first came to office, young people and jobs were leaving our state. Roads and bridges were crumbling. We had enacted healthcare reform, but we had yet to implement it. Stem cell research was banned. Our clean energy potential was stuck in ideological stalemate. The poor were in terrible shape and had been for quite some while. The difference was that the middle class were now one paycheck away from being poor and deeply anxious about it. And we had had 16 years of Republican governors, yes, including Mitt Romney, more interested in having the job than doing the job. So we set out on a journey to change that, to revive the American dream. Why? Because I learned from my grandparents what you learned from yours, that each of us in our time must do what we can to leave things better for those who come behind us. And then, just as we were getting started, the economy collapsed. But I didn't cut and run like a bunch of the folks who had had this job before me. I didn't look for scapegoats or lose my temper or my way. Instead, just like families all across our Commonwealth and all across the country, we took a fresh look at our plan. We stiffened our resolve, and with our values foremost in mind, made choices. Like everybody else, we cut state spending and headcount and slimmed down or eliminated programs. But we also chose to invest in education, in healthcare, and in job creation, because we all know that educating our kids, having healthcare you can depend on, and a good job is the only path to the American dream. And that is why we have moved from 47th in job creation when my predecessor was in office to top 10 today. That's why our students lead the nation in student achievement and the world in math and science. That's why we lead the nation in healthcare coverage, with over 98% of our residents insured, over 99.8% of children. That's why we lead the nation in energy efficiency and veteran services. That's also why in Massachusetts you can marry whomever you love. And it's why we have not only closed our budget gaps, eliminated our structural deficit, and achieved the highest bond rating in our history, but also with labor at the table, made the kinds of meaningful reforms in the pension system, in municipal health benefits, in our schools, in transportation, and so much more that had eluded us for decades. None of this is happening by accident. It's happening because of the choices we are making. Choices based on our values, based on a commitment to having government do its role to enable the American dream. We have much, much more to do, of course, but we are on the right track because we placed our faith not in unfettered markets or angry rhetoric, but in our values and our common sense, in the American dream itself. Now, today's Republicans would make different choices. And let me be clear that I am governor of all of the people of the Commonwealth, people of either party or no party, the ones who support me and the ones who don't. I'm one of those old-fashioned types who thinks that campaigns end on Election Day. But the values that inform my choices are those of a Democrat. And the values and thus the choices of the National Republican Party and their candidate for president are very different. And coming into 2012, we ought to be crystal clear about that. You know, after you cut through all their slogans, all that today's Republicans are saying that if we just shrink government, cut spending, crush unions, and wait, all will be well. Of course, history has proven that thesis wrong time after time. I mean, think Herbert Hoover. Right? You don't have to go back that far. Just think George W. Bush. But here's the thing. Republicans don't actually mean what they say. Think about it. The same folks who say that government should be small and spending should be limited are responsible in the Bush administration for the biggest run-up in the size of the federal government and the largest increase in the federal deficit in the history of the United States. The same folks who attack the principle of public sector collective bargaining today will make an exception for any union who endorses their candidate. The same folks who say that jobs should be a top priority oppose every jobs plan Democrats propose and have no jobs plan of their own. It doesn't stop there. The same folks who say religious fundamentalism is a danger abroad are busy promoting it right here at home. The same folks who say government should stay out of our private affairs want government to tell women whether to keep an unwanted pregnancy and everybody else whom they can marry. You and I can go on. For Republicans today, it's not about principle, it's about power. Willing to say or do anything to win power. They have abandoned any sense of shared responsibility for our future and put division itself at the top of their political agenda. And when you call them on it, they turn to bullying. Well, we Democrats need to be better than that, but that means more than having a strong argument for what we are against. We need to be just as clear about what we are for. Now, let me say, I am proud to be a Democrat. But Democrats get on my last nerve sometimes. After our special election in 2010, when a Republican won the seat long held by our beloved Ted Kennedy, we turned to navel-gazing about our message and our policies, asking ourselves what we needed to say or do to win elections instead of what we need to say or do to save our country. To me, the loss of the House to Tea Party radicals that fall was as much about a loss of our own self-confidence as it was about a loss of votes. Whether they are frustrated with the smug petulance of the right or the timid half-steps of the left, Americans are still frustrated. And frustration has made us anxious. Our anxious today are young and old, professional and blue-collar, diverse in race, religion, and heritage, politically engaged and politically disaffected alike, united, I believe, by eroding faith in the American dream and by dwindling confidence in our collective capacity to restore it. So how do we Democrats restore it? We do so by standing up for what we believe. We believe in an economy that grows opportunity out to the marginalized, not just up to the well-connected. We believe government is about people, not abstract policy. and that government has a role to play, not in solving every problem in everybody's life, but in helping people help themselves. We believe that we owe the next generation a better country than we found, not quick fixes that push the real solutions off to another day. We believe that in good times and in crises alike, we turn to each other, not on each other. That we have to lift each other up, not tear each other down. We believe in the American dream, and that it ought to have real meaning in people's lives. Well, let me just say, if that's what we believe, here is my message, Democrats, plain and simple. If we want to win elections in 2012, if we want to keep Barack Obama in the White House and move our country forward, if we want to earn the privilege to lead, then it's time for Democrats to grow a backbone and stand up for what we believe. What the country craves today and what Democrats can offer is not the politics of convenience and cleverness. It's the politics of conviction, because different convictions lead to different choices. Some of our choices in Massachusetts and some of those facing our nation make even some of our traditional allies uncomfortable. But the times demand more than making each other comfortable. The times demand that we reconnect with our highest and best values and face up to the hard choices before us with candor and courage, because doing so today will make us stronger tomorrow. I am proud of the work we are doing to restore the American dream at home in Massachusetts, and of the work that the President is doing to restore it across this country. But as a resident of the Commonwealth, as a Democrat, and as an American, I'm not yet satisfied. And you can't be satisfied either. We can't be satisfied until every single